name is Scylla, and today I'm going to be talking all about how I purchase stuff from Japan, particularly Lolita stuff. I've gotten quite a few requests on how to buy from Mercari Japan and Fril and Yahoo Auctions. So right off the bat, if you are unfamiliar with any of these places, they are basically second-hand websites where you purchase items like you would be able to with eBay or also Lace Market. And the reason that these places are really great choices for Lolitas in particular is because Japan is pretty much like the starting zone for Lolita fashion, so there are a lot of good deals there that you probably won't be able to find anywhere else. But the trouble that most people find is that you cannot order directly from any of these places unless you live in Japan, because they only ship domestically. So if you plan on buying from them, you will need to use a proxy just as you would with Taobao. And if you are a total newbie, that is totally fine, but a proxy basically works as like an in-between. So once you would find said proxy, you order directly through their website, you give them all the money for the item plus a small fee, and then they go and purchase the item for you. And then eventually they'll receive the item and hold it for a couple days, and then once you pay a second fee to have them ship it out to you, finally it will eventually arrive to you. So step one is all about finding the right proxy for you. Every single place is going to have a slightly different fee, as well as different rules about like how long they hold on to items and such. Zen Market I think used to be the most popular option. However, they've stopped showing any listings from Mercari, and I've read that this is because Mercari refuses to work with proxies. And I also read, and I apologize if this is completely wrong, but what I read was that it was because it had to do with like payment issues, or you know, people choosing to buy a thing and then when the time came around, like for auctions, they would just kind of disappear. This is what I read. Again, it could be totally wrong. But that being said, whether this is true or not, if you are planning to buy anything, and especially if you're using like an in-between, please make sure that you have enough money to pay for all segments. I know sometimes accidents just happen. It's happened to me before. But if you are using a proxy, you should at this point have set aside a budget so that in case of emergency, you don't have to pull anything out from there. I know it sounds like it shouldn't be an issue, but it's a little suspicious because I mean, why else would Mercari suddenly decide that they don't want to work with outsiders? But anyway, I believe Neokyo was also a popular option, but last I read, they also no longer are able to shop from Mercari. Japanica Market at this time of filming seems to be working, and Bai, I guess, is another popular one. And before I finish the video, yes, I will be going over which proxy I use, but first I want to mention that you will notice that for some of these places, you will have to go to like the original Mercari Japan website and find items that way, and then manually enter like the information and the link and like any possible options that you have into the proxy website before submitting. And then there are other types of proxies where their website was designed specifically so that pretty much you can already see items there that are listed on Mercari and Fril and the auctions and such. So it's basically just like rehosting all of these listings. But even though it is much easier, you do have to remember that is pretty much the same exact process. Once you order something from the proxy, they're still gonna have to take the same steps, and they're gonna have to reach out to the original seller on Mercari in order to then purchase that item. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you exactly how I have done it in the past. I personally use Hoyoyo. I do need to use Google Translate mostly when I do use it, but I find that they work very quickly. I don't mind their fees, and they have never let me down, and I've ordered from them quite a few times. Now, if you want to use Hoyoyo, that is fine, that's great. But that being said, again, if you find another proxy that you think will work better for you, then absolutely you're going to want to use that one instead. If it makes you feel better, you can ask on YouTube in the comments what other people use, or on Reddit or on Facebook, and just get word from other Lolitas, see what they enjoy using most. But back to Hoyoyo, since they're really the only experience that I have with buying from Mercari directly. Like many places, they have a tier system, which is pretty neat, but really it only came handy when I was buying like several things at once. You're really not gonna see a difference if you're only buying like one item here and there spread out. But as you can see, they have a section for Mercari, for Fril, and also Yahoo Auctions. I personally do not use auctions at all. If I'm using a proxy, I find that it is far too stressful, but if it interests you, then I would definitely check that out. There are some sellers, of course, that have a buy it now option, which is great because you can buy it immediately instead of having to go through the actual auction process. But aside from that, when you are shopping around, there's definitely some things that you want to be wary of, and these are pretty much just basic secondhand shopping tips. You want to make sure that the description makes sense and it's neat. A lot of the times things will be labeled like as a brand item when it's not. So if you look up Angelic Pretty, you're gonna find a lot of off-brand items, but they label it Angelic Pretty because it is a Lolita item, so they want it to be found. Or it'll be like a Taobao item, but it's very similar to like an Innocent World item, so they'll call it Innocent World in the actual specific like labels, but in the description, that's when they'll mention that it's off-brand. You also want to look at the pictures and make sure to check like the background. Is it in a clean environment? Do you have to worry about potential smells or stains? Does the seller have a good rating? It's very important. The majority of my wardrobe is secondhand, and for the most part I have had a pretty good experience. I would say though that 99% of my negative experiences were secondhand items that came from Japan, unfortunately. And this was either items were smelly or pretty much smelly or moldy, but I already told that story. So also watch out for scalpers because they definitely exist there too. And also you want to definitely make sure to check the shipping price. Now sometimes they won't have this, but I can assure you because it is domestic, it is going to be fairly, it's affordable. And I feel like it's a lot cheaper than shipping within the US. But the thing to really look out for is like heavy items like shoes. If you see someone selling like 5 brand shoes for like a really good deal, that shipping cost will be really cheap within Japan. But the cost of shipping, getting it from Japan to you, is going to be a totally different story. So if you're buying like heavy things overseas, definitely just be ready for that. So a really helpful thing is that I'm able to favorite items, which is really helpful for finding items that probably aren't really getting sold. I can figure out like how much money do I need to put aside. And there's also just so many items to sort through that being able to save it is just really helpful. So let's say I want to buy this item. I would have to pay this amount in addition to a small processing fee, which is pretty standard. So something that you do have to remember is proxies usually always work like a 9 to 5 in Japan time. So if I were to order something here in California at like noon, I probably wouldn't hear anything back till the next day. Earliest is like the very early morning, closer maybe to like the middle of the night. And if someone in Japan or somewhere else happens to purchase the item before my bro gets the chance to, it sucks, but the order just ends up automatically being canceled, and the money that I paid ends up staying in my account. So it's essentially like a wallet, and I can either ask for a refund or I can save that money and keep it in there in my account and use it for a later purchase. Something really neat about this is because it is essentially like a wallet, you can add money to it like you would a debit card. So if you want to have your own budget, you can go ahead and do that, and that way you'll know exactly how much money you have to spend. Now, if the proxy does end up purchasing the item, that is great. You see your money go bye-bye, and then after that you just wait for it to come into their warehouse. And at this point it is dependent on the seller. Sometimes it takes a few days for the seller to ship it out. And like I said earlier, every proxy has its own different rules when it comes to how long any given purchase can stay in their own warehouse. For Hoyoyo, it is 30 days per item, and if I'm at a higher tier because I've been purchasing stuff here and there, that number will go up. So I think the most I had was like 35 days, and this is for every single incoming item. So if I purchase a dress Once it reaches the warehouse, I have 30 days to pay for this item to have it shipped to me. Well, not for the item, for the shipping. I have to pay the shipping costs for them to send it over. If I end up purchasing, say, socks, like 1 week later, once those socks come in, that's another 30 days. So I can have the dress sent over and I can wait like another 7 days before I have to then pay for the shipping of the socks to come. However, that's a little bit inconvenient. It's just much easier to have them shipped together once. Now, I couldn't find any information about how many items they'll hold in their warehouse for you at once. I think the most that I've had is maybe 12, but they do have a shipping limit. And then beyond that, there is of course a shipping weight, like most places. So if you have just a whole bunch of items waiting to be sent to you, it would be in your best interest to split them and figure out what's gonna work best accordingly. And when I do pay for shipping, I have always used FedEx. There is a cheaper option that of course takes a lot longer, but I think during the height of Corona, they kind of forced you to pay with FedEx because it's just a lot safer. There's a lot better guarantee that you're gonna get your package. I'm not sure if that's currently still the case or not, as it's been a few months since I've purchased anything. But when I've shipped through FedEx, it usually takes no more than 3 to 4 days to arrive. I've never had an issue with any of my packages going missing or being damaged. There was always tracking, and the website was like always being updated as it ventured its way out to me. Now, another important thing to note is that you got to remember that the proxy is simply repackaging items that they received. So if you pull out an item and it does smell really, really, really bad, that is not the fault of the proxy. That is the original seller. I'm not sure what the process is for like reaching out, asking them to leave reviews and such, as I've never felt the need to do that. So if you have any questions about that, you would have to ask someone else. Now, before I end, I do want to throw in some Lolita tips. As these are all secondhand sites, it's not just Lolita that's on there. There's all kinds of stuff on there. For example, you could get all kinds of Liz Lisa there or any other kind of Japanese label. And I would highly recommend looking for any kind of Japanese fashion outside of Lolita, because you can get Loliable items for super, super cheap. Access Femme is a great one for blouses. I've gotten bags for super cheap, and for those I would look up Milk and Swimmer. But yeah, aside from that, that's pretty much all I have. I know that there is the initial worry of having to take the extra step just to go shopping, but I do feel like once you do it the first time, it becomes really easy afterwards, and you'll find that the process as a whole is just actually quite simple. I also know that it might seem more expensive given the extra fees, but like I just said, I've gotten some really, really good deals on Mercari that I just would not be able to find anywhere else really. So I feel like that really makes up for it. But yeah, that's all I have. I hope that that was helpful. If you have any more requests, please feel free to let me know, and I'll see if I could make that into a video. But thanks for watching if you watched, and I will see you next time. Bye!